Hello, this is Hot Indonesia, and welcome to all of you watching in Singapore. I'm Dalton Tanonaka in Jakarta. Here is this week's HI Hotlist. Gender gap. No surprise, the latest government study says women get paid nearly a fourth less than men. How can that be fixed? Best test. Are rapid blood tests sufficient in satisfying health protocols? And cabin fever, why some are paying to fly to nowhere. Here are my co-hosts each and every week. Sandrina Malakiano, Deputy CEO of Polmark Indonesia from her home in South Tangerang, and Sandiaga Uno, former Vice Governor of Jakarta from his home in South Jakarta. Hot topic number one, gender gap. The numbers are not surprising, but impact of COVID-19 make them more painful. The government says women made 23% less than men in February year on year, with an average monthly salary of 2.45 million rupiah, or roughly $166. The global average is 16% less. Experts say education does play a role in the difference. Discrimination is the major factor now. Where do we start? It's a problem just about everywhere in the world, every sector, business, education, retail, sports. But here, Sandy, it hurts the poor and the working class harder.
Yep, definitely. And this is very unfair. When we look at where we stand out of the 153 countries, we're number 85. So we're unimpressive in the global space. Men and women should be paid equal amounts for doing the same job. That's, I think, should be the universal belief. A simple way to reduce, I think, this gender payment gap is by knocking some barriers and encouraging women entrepreneurships. Because when you have women as the boss, they will make sure that equal pay does exist. And we're looking at the small medium enterprises. Women owns 23% of the small and medium enterprises. And if we look at this in proportion, 80% of the women entrepreneurs run profitable business enterprise and create more jobs for women. So with the average monthly profits of 2.5 million rupiah, I'll give you some numbers, that the profit margin is between 20 to 30%. I've got these numbers from the OKOC numbers, the network of entrepreneurs that open up opportunities to create jobs by mentoring, by training. And clearly, if we give more opportunity for women in the entrepreneurship space, I think we will pretty much reduce the payment gender gap.
Yeah, okay, but for existing jobs, Sandrina, discrimination the main problem. How do you correct that? It's a mindset that's gone on forever.
I agree completely. You see, there is this gender stereotyping that exists basically in most Asian countries, like Indonesia. In Asia, it is a common perception that men are considered responsible to support their families, their wives, and their children. Therefore, they are seen to be more fit to get a bigger salary than women. But the fact is that now in the last decade, you see more and more women are also working to support their families. We could now say that about 4 to 5 in 10 families have women who are the breadwinner in their families. And only 53% of women in working or productive age now are working, compared to 83% of men in the working age. And from that 53%, 55% are working in informal and micro or small businesses. So they are earning a lot less than men. This, I agree, needs to be changed.
I'd like to add, Dalton, that out of those numbers, the trajectory of proportion of business owned by women is actually growing significantly faster than those owned by men. But I agree with Sandrina. We need to double the effort to reduce the gender gap pay by anti-discriminations of laws and regulations and policies, awareness campaign, number 2, and 3, this is very, very important, promotions of flexible hours for women, especially for mothers. And I think if we do this together, it's not only Asian problem, but it's a global problem. Like in Australia, this gender gap pay actually caused the GDP to drop by 100 billion US dollars. So this is very important if we want to create more jobs, better economy, and less inequalities. I think we need to work hard to reduce this gap.
Yeah, if the gap is narrowed, it also is good for the country. And economists say that the GDP is actually helped by a percentage of points or a point or two. Now, Sandrina, let's end this segment with maybe a personal anecdote or story, because I'm wondering have you, as a woman, personally felt the impact of the gender pay gap, either as an employee or employer?
Not necessarily me personally, but if I look way back to my university years, I entered the world of civil engineering. I'm a civil engineer, and out of 114 students, there were only 4 women. So this is also what we need to change, the mindset that there are only specific fields that are suitable for women in which they can thrive and have a good career. Women are well paid in only very limited sectors like the fashion industry, textile, or lifestyle, beauty. Automotive, which is more surprising, there are very good sales in the automotive industry, but that's about it. The rest is dominated by men. We need more women leaders, actually, as legislators, as executors in the executive body, because they know and they will fight for gender equality. So for the women themselves, educate yourselves, give more experience and knowledge so that you can compete, expand, broaden your horizon.
Yeah, and as Sandy
we'll
said,
get there.
Yeah, and as Sandy said, government has to be there to enforce laws or create new laws to level the playing field. Okay, Hot Indo will continue shortly with Best Test. Are rapid blood tests a waste of time? You're watching Hot Indonesia with Sandrina, Sandy, and me. Here's hot topic number 2, Best Test. Now, it's required when you fly domestically, and some businesses are requiring it for their workers before being allowed back in the office. But the health community is concerned on the reliance on rapid blood tests, saying many are less than 50% accurate with both false positives and false negatives. Much more reliable, they say, are PCR swab tests, which are at least 10 times more expensive. Now, let's start with that business aspect. Cynics say rapid tests are moneymakers, and that's why the government had to set a cap of 50,000 or 150,000 rupiah or $11 per test. Sandrina, are you that cynical?
I'm not cynical, but I'm now more on the vigilant side, because I travel quite often and I do need quick results and accurate results starting from the earliest point, and that I can only get from a PCR or swab test. Because rapid tests, they are accurate, but they need time. And they have different results for different stages. That's what's happening.
No, wait, Sanjita, what do you mean rapid tests need time? You can get it in 10 minutes.
True, but Dalton, I have a rapid test kit here. You see on the rapid test, this is where you put your blood, but there is this 3 stripes. First, to show that if it's valid or not, but the 2 other stripes is for the IgG and the IgM antibodies. So these antibodies only form in time. So you might already have the virus, but your antibody has not been developed.
So that's my point then. Are they useless? I mean,
they are not for certain periods. If you may have had the virus infect you, say maybe in 3 days to 7 days, then one of the stripes will be there.
My point is, do we just skip that and just go to the more accurate swab test, Sandy? But following the cost thread we started, it's darn expensive. Now, should the government step in and subsidize some of these or make it free entirely? Because I've seen prices ranging from $80 to $150 to more in the US dollar equivalent. And the rapid tests kind of give people sometimes a false sense of security because they're not entirely accurate. Sandy?
As you may recall, I ran this unified coalition front of volunteers against COVID-19. And we have conducted more than 15,000 rapid tests. I think rapid tests is good to raise awareness, to basically do screening. But the more accurate one is definitely the PCR swab test. Out of the 15,000 that we did the rapid test, I think the accuracy ranges from 50 to 60%. So looking at this, I am of the opinion that we need to invest more into the PCR swab test. So we have stopped the rapid test and going directly into the PCR swab test and making sure that the cost of the PCR swab test is being spread. The burden should not be on the people or the business or just the government, but it has to be some kind of a collaboration because in terms of opening up sections of the economies when you have a lower risk factors to public health, that needs some kind of data. And the only way that you get data is when you do the testing, contact tracing, and treatment. So we are now at close to 4,000 everyday new cases, plus or minus. This is very, very concerning. So government should take a bigger role in terms of this testing. But actually the business communities also needs to chip in, and the people also need to support the way to increase our triple T, testing, tracing, and treatment.
Okay, let's talk about testing overall for a second. Testing here has been below the World Health Organization recommendation of 1 per 1,000 population each week. So we're less than 40% of that guidance, meaning we're nowhere close to being
here where
testing as
in
many
Indonesia
people, right?
or in Jakarta?
No, in Indonesia.
Okay,
So,
because Jakarta is doing it like almost 5 times
but
above the
again,
WHO
a lot of the
standard.
outbreaks are outside of the capital. With our, as Sandy said, with our infection total still rising, what's the answer then, Sandrina?
The answer is, like Sandy said, 3T, the tracing, the testing, and the treatment.
No, but I mean specifically testing.
Yes.
How can we get more people tested, or do we need to?
We need subsidy also from here in Jakarta. You can get free PCR testing if you can prove that you have had contact with somebody who is or was COVID-19 positive. So all you need to do is go to the local hospital or clinic owned by the government, and you can get a free PCR test. That is good. I know also that the mayor Surabaya is implementing some sort of subsidy to enable the people to get tests easier and with a friendlier price because they only have to pay a very small amount to get a PCR test. But I don't know whether this is also ongoing in other provinces in Indonesia. We do need to increase the number of tests because that's the only way we can reduce the number of mortality, because if we do the test, then we get people who are infected in the earliest stages. That is very crucial to save lives, Dalton.
Yeah, and that's what our guest last week, Kevin, said. If he was treated earlier, he might not have been hospitalized. Now, prevention, of course, prevention is always the best. But
right.
What would your advice, Sandy, be then to someone who worried about being exposed to the virus? What step immediately should they take?
Definitely, the government needs to take the leadership role because this involves data, and we need to integrate the data. So the way to prevent is to make sure that area by area, and we have now basically with the integrations of data and with the increase of testing, Jakarta is getting there, but the rest of the countries needs to step up. And this is where the national government, in conjunction with local government, needs to divert some of the COVID funding that is now only less than 50%, and we are already close to October, close to the last quarter of the financial year. We have not really been deploying. So I would suggest that the government needs to push for more testing in other part of the country and make sure that the data is integrated, the government takes leadership, and if you falls within the contact tracing, you need to subsidize the PCR swab test.
Yeah, that would be a big step in helping people get tested. And in answer to my own question, if you feel like you've been exposed, get a test, rapid or swab, whatever you can afford. And as Sandrina said, government hospitals will give you a free swab test if you feel that you've been exposed. Okay, more Hot Indo is ahead with cabin fever. Why some are paying for flights to nowhere. You're watching Hot Indonesia from Jakarta. Here's hot topic number 3, cabin fever. Airlines seeking to stay in touch with its customer base and a bit of cash flow are now offering sightseeing flights that go nowhere. Australia's Qantas sold out of its first 7-hour scenic flight over the Great Barrier Reef and the Outback. Taiwan's Tiger Air offers a flyover of South Korea. And Japan's ANA created a Hawaiian experience, I want to go, on its flight to and from the same airport. Now, you know, because of 97% of international travel is banned, I guess some people just miss the friendly skies, Sandy.
Yeah, and this is really creative approach to part of the increase in tourism and how to revive the airline industry. I used to live in Singapore, whereby they have cruise to nowhere. You have basically after office hours, you board on a cruise, and actually the very next morning you arrive in the same jetty that you last night you departed from. So another breakthrough is hopefully we can pretty much flatten the curve, control the pandemic if we can apply a travel bubble. So what they are doing with this flight to nowhere is a travel bubble, because you could have the safest way and have a travel partnership, and then you can expand. Because I'm sorry for our tourism industry, like Bali will not be beneficiaries of this travel to nowhere. So you need to create this travel bubble system in order for you to revive some of the destinations, because you need to get people back to work, and you need to get people's income is actually now suffering because of the COVID-19. So,
yeah, Sandy, you're right that the countries involved have a lower number of coronavirus cases than other countries. So they felt comfortable about doing this. Sandrina, would you take such a flight?
Honestly, no. Especially in such a situation, I would feel that it would be quite insensitive, taking a flight that takes you nowhere. Just for the fun of it. But aside from the fact that people might also say that there's going to be pollution, waste of fuel by creating such flights that takes you to just the same airport back and forth, makes no sense. It is an interesting marketing gimmick though, and I'm not sure that if they continue, the market that's available for this kind of packages would be huge. It's just going to be a limited number of people, a small amount of people who have money who just miss flying.
The airlines just want to keep their name out there, and ANA can do the Hawaiian experience sitting on the runway. So I might go to that if they serve kind of authentic Hawaiian food. I'll invite both of you too, be my guests.
I'm working on one project, and it's actually Belitung. Belitung have a lower number of COVID-19 outbreak, and it's actually, thank God, under control. And this is a good candidate if you apply a very strict travel COVID-19 protocol with swab tests and with basically all the bells and whistles, wearing masks, social distancing, and applying this very, very strict protocol. we could have this pilot scheme, and then if this works, let's say with Belitung, then we could start with parts of Bali, because Bali is much larger. But let's
Sandy,
say,
what do you mean? You mean a flight to Belitung?
It's a package for basically a new way of travel. You don't pack the entire flight, but it's maybe 50%. Probably will be able to create jobs for the pilots, for the flight attendants, and for the people there in Belitung and here. So we are actually have to create a travel partnership between the two sides. And if we could create this travel partnership, little by little, this new era of traveling and tourism is actually going to at least have some kind of a revival.
Yeah, we have to be creative a little bit in these times, and that's what the international airlines are doing with their flights to nowhere. Okay, it is feedback time, and we want to hear from you wherever you are watching us. Roger in Melbourne, Australia, posted this on our Facebook page regarding the likely end of the printed Jakarta Post. As a kid, I remember having fish and chips wrapped in newspaper, got to read and munch simultaneously. You were an early multitasker, Roger. And YNY posted this on the YouTube page of our partner TV1. I hope more Indonesians will start learning English, and we are happy to help with that. Here's how to contact us with your feedback. Email, please. Email still exists at hotindo@theindonesiachannel.com, or comment through our Hot Indonesia or Indonesia Channel Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube pages. Final words, Sandrina.
Yep. Gender equality is not just a moral issue. It makes economic sense. Although we're getting closer to gender parity, but if we are still in this space, it will take like forever to get to where we need to be. And the local elections, the 270 simultaneous elections in Indonesia, I think now is still going to be held on the 9th of December, despite all the polls from here and there and requests for the government to postpone the election. Nevertheless, we should be really, really careful not to create an election COVID cluster, because this is what people fear the most right now. So many candidates have been found positive, and people who have gathered in the rallies now, just when they were about to register, have also been infected. So this should be a wake-up call for all of us.
Final word, Sandy.
Earlier in the week, Finance Minister basically threw the towel, the white towel, that we are in recessions. I've been saying this for last 3 months, that we should not debate whether we are going to be in recessions or not. But I think we should be focusing on how government can accelerate the social transfers of cash to the people in need, especially in the bottom of the pyramid, and also how we could revive the micro, small, medium enterprise. Secondly, last week and earlier this week, I lost a couple of very close friends, one a Bupati and the other one is a Sekda of Jakarta. Guys, we need to be very, very careful. COVID-19 is getting nearer to us, so please stay safe, wear a mask, maintain social distance, and always wash your hand.
Yeah, we'll say that over and over again. And my final words, I just voted this week by absentee ballot for the president of my home country. Now, if you like Donald Trump's style and actions, that's fine. If you want Joe Biden's civility and more human approach, then vote for change. But whomever you prefer, I urge all my fellow Americans overseas to vote, as well as Indonesians in the upcoming regional elections that Sandrina mentioned in December. Never has every voice meant so much. And that is Hot Indonesia for this week. For Sandrina Malakiano, Santiago Uno, I'm Dalton Tanonaka. Thank you for watching, and see you next week for a special 1-year anniversary show.